Can the classic American muscle car survive when you replace this with this? Hey guys, what's going on, and welcome back to Shifting Lanes. My name's Chad, and today we are talking about what might be the most American type of vehicle ever sold. That is the classic American muscle car. Now, in recent days, Dodge has announced that they're going to be electrifying the muscle car, and that poses an interesting question. Can muscle cars still be considered a muscle car when you remove the beating heart, that V8 engine, and replace it with electric motors and batteries? The concept of a muscle car has muddied in recent years. When most people hear muscle car, they think back to the 60s and early 70s, the golden era of muscle cars, before the insurance companies and fuel shortages reared their ugly heads. The classic muscle car recipe could not be simpler. You basically take an existing platform, give it wild styling, loud, borderline obnoxious paint colors, and shove as big an engine as you possibly can under the hood. Very little attention is given to handling, braking, etc. But the most important thing about muscle cars were they were affordable. The end result were cars that went like a bat out of hell in a straight line, perfect for the light-to-light drag racing that was popular at the time. But these cars weren't exactly great when things got twisty. The combination of basic suspension and substantial weight wasn't exactly a recipe for nimble handling. In fact, they were quite terrible in the corners. This stigma of not being able to handle very well is still attached to modern muscle cars, even if in some cases it is not warranted at all. And this is where the modern muscle car gets confusing. Dodge and their Charger and Challenger have stayed true to the classic muscle car formula. They are big, they are spectacular to look at, and they go like heck in a straight line. While they will corner better than any of their forefathers, they're still not as good as their rivals. The laws of physics still apply, and the modern Mopars are still quite massive. On the other side of the muscle car spectrum sit Chevy and Ford. Ford specifically with the Mustang follows the formula: bold styling, V8 in the front, and an amazing soundtrack. Where it deviates is, the Mustang is a quarter-ton lighter than the Mopars, and it has independent rear suspension. These are two things directly aimed at making the Mustang handle corners in addition to going fast in a straight line. The Mustang looks the part, sounds the part, but it is more sports car than classic muscle car. The same can be said for Chevy's Camaro. Modern muscle is divided into two camps. On the one end sit the Mopars, and on the other, Ford and Chevy, and yet they all get lumped into one category. They are all muscle cars. With all of that being said, to truly understand the muscle car, you really need to drive one. And obviously, well, we can't do that from inside of the office. So we're gonna go outside where my muscle car is waiting, and we're gonna go for a drive. Okay, so this is a 2015 Ford Mustang. Not any 2015 Ford Mustang, but my 2015 Ford Mustang GT with the performance and premium packages. Now, she's not exactly stock, but the cold start is still, well, so that right there, that initial startup, again, this isn't exactly a stock vehicle. However, that noise is still the soundtrack of a muscle car. The American 8 firing on all 8 cylinders. It is a definite reminder that you are not in a normal vehicle. This is in fact something special, and that is the party piece to the muscle car. Yes, they're affordable. Yes, some of them don't exactly handle all that well, but they make you feel special. They make you feel like you're in something that isn't a normal, boring, get you from point A to point B type of vehicle. Every bit as important as the power plant is the way this car looks. I own a heavily modified Volvo, and literally no one gives that car a second look. Meanwhile, the Mustang gets looks everywhere I go, and it's not like they're rare. Mustangs are everywhere. Mustangs and muscle cars in general just give off an aura, and people either love it or hate it, but they still turn and look at it. There is huge appeal behind driving something that everyone turns and looks at. However, that only goes so far. If muscle cars were nothing more than a giant ego stroke, they wouldn't be so endearing, so timeless, so ingrained in American automotive culture. No, what keeps people coming back, well, nothing gives you that thrust, that instant thrown back in the back of your seat. Sure, there are cars that sound this good. Sure, there are cars that go like this in a straight line. Sure, there are cars that handle better, but nothing does all of this sort of stuff like the muscle car. The fact that the modern Mustang will also corner in addition to going fast in a straight line gives you an amazing piece of kit that, more importantly, normal people can actually afford. The Mustang will do drag racing without breaking a sweat. It will also handle anything your favorite twisty road can throw at it. And arguably the most impressive thing about this car, she stops on a dime. So, goes like hell in a straight line, handles like a dream. Like, I'm telling you, this car handles way better than you could ever give any other muscle car. There's a real sense of what the rear wheels are doing as far as grip. The front wheels are communicative, so you know what the steering inputs are doing. It is a really good handler. It stops on a dime. It goes like heck. This is not the classic muscle car. This is a sports car. But, and this is a rather elephant-sized but, what happens to the muscle car when you replace this? What happens when internal combustion dies? What happens when it is no longer acceptable to put a snarling, screaming, thunderous V8 under the hood? Can the muscle car survive? Can the muscle car survive when you remove what is arguably the most impressive thing about a muscle car? Personally, I firmly believe the idea of the muscle car has to live on when the world inevitably goes electric. They represent real performance that the everyman can go out and buy. That notion should not die simply because the internal combustion engine dies. Yes, the engine is the biggest piece of the muscle car equation, but it isn't the whole equation. Remember, muscle cars were born out of normal cars that manufacturers decided to put their biggest, most powerful engine into. Given the technology of the day, that meant stuffing the biggest V8 they could find into the engine bay. The idea of a consumer electric car wasn't even a thought to engineers back in the 60s. I'd be willing to wager that when insurance companies and the government came down on muscle cars in the mid-70s, many engineers would have entertained the idea of electrifying their cars to reclaim the power lost if they had the tech to do so. I'll even go one step further. What if I told you there was already an electric muscle car? And no, I am not talking about the Mach-E. Never the Mach-E, not the Mach-E. It is not a Mustang. It is a crossover that just happens to have a horse on it, okay? It is not the Mach-E, but an electric muscle car does exist. Make no mistake, the Mach-E is a great piece of kit, but it is a crossover, a family car, very much not a muscle car. What I am actually talking about is Tesla, specifically the Model S and the Model 3. Both were funky to look at when they were new. Both go like hell in a straight line. In fact, I spent a night at the drag strip recently and a Model 3 was consistently running in the 11s. Or to put it another way, it was gapping the heck out of me. And if you're more of a traditionalist, Ford has an actual electric Mustang that is running in the 8s. So just in case you don't speak drag racing, 8s roughly equates to insanely fast, just stupid, way faster than pretty much anything that drives on today's roads. Electric cars actually have a lot of muscle. They just do it silently. But if we take that power, put it into something that looks the part, i.e. a car with a long nose, fairly loud but contemporary styling, and we have most of the muscle car recipe. And even in our all-electric future, this is all allowed. If all of this can be done and kept the cars affordable, I believe the muscle car will survive. Look, I totally understand that if you remove the V8, the beating heart of any muscle car, both today and in the past, you remove a lot of the charm, a lot of the appeal, a lot of what makes a muscle car a muscle car. But I also think that isn't enough reason to kill off the muscle car. Muscle cars give consumers the opportunity to buy a car that makes them feel special. At the end of the day, that's what muscle cars do. They make you feel special. They're fun, they're fast, they look unique. They give the average consumer the feeling of driving something much, much more than an average car. Those are all things that should be available even when internal combustion goes away. If you remove the muscle car from the automotive world, remove that car that's fun, slightly impractical, fun to look at, fast, all of those things, well, you're left with just boring family cars. You're left with boring crossovers. The world needs an antidote from the boring. The world needs muscle cars, even if they are electric. And that's gonna do it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving us a like. If you aren't already, please subscribe with notifications on. That way you get all of the Shifting Lanes content as we release it. Let's face it, internal combustion is dying, but that does not mean the idea, the ideal, the muscle car itself should die along with it. Even when the world goes electric, we need cars like the muscle car. But for this video, that's a wrap, and I'll catch you next time.